whoa. Get out the way, get out the way, get out the way, yeah. Get out the way, get the fuck up out my way, yeah. Win.
Hello, welcome to Millennial Sport Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, we are finally here, episode 9, where we can finally talk about the predictions for week 1's NFL games. We have basically all 30 teams, 2 teams played already, so 30 teams will play over the weekend, and that's 15 total predictions we're going to bring to you. What's so beautiful about week 1 is just that this is the best week to trash talk, because when you go to the bar, anybody at the bar is going to be a fan of somebody. I mean, anybody and everybody, they're going to be excited for their team. They're going to be optimistic. They're going to be willing to bet this is the year for their team. And that's what's so good, makes you feel good inside about week 1, is that you know at least 27 other teams are going to be very disappointed about 4 or 5 weeks into the season. What you can do me a favor, after you watch this video, go to the bar and just talk trash to somebody, because that's what the NFL, that's what the fans are all about. It's just talking trash to each other. If nobody talked trash to each other, there wouldn't be the same amount of emotion for the fans, because the fans, we're not on the field. We're not risking our lives. We're not risking paychecks, to play a football game. No, what makes it fun for us is that we get to put on a jersey and we can be a supporter of the team. And as a supporter, you talk shit to the other supporters, and that's what it's all about. 2 predictions we have for this week. Well, first 3, since the entire division is playing, and that's the AFC North. So first game we had, at least I saw on the NFL ticker, is the Ravens and Bills. This game is going to be played in Baltimore. So the Bills are going to have to go to a hostile environment with a fairly inexperienced quarterback, Nathan Peterman, gets the start over Josh Allen, who I don't think it's any difference. You flip a coin, both of these quarterbacks are not going to be ready to face this Ravens defense. Say what you want about the Ravens seasons last year, but defense was not their main issue. Defense was actually their strength, and it continues to always be their strength. So that pressure that the Bills are going to get up the middle from the sides, those blitz packages, there's no way this quarterback's going to be, Peterman is going to be able to read these. He's going to throw 3, maybe 4 or 5 interceptions. Ravens defense is a great defense for your fantasy picks this week, because I see a lot of turnovers in this game with the inexperienced quarterback at the Bills offense leading that offense. So yeah, Ravens over Bills, that's easy. The second game would be the Bengals and Colts. Now, this is a little bit more interesting of a game. We have the Bengals visiting the Colts. So with the game in Indianapolis, that changes things just a little bit. I think Indianapolis would have a little more momentum going to this game, simply because they got Andrew Luck back. The only hope they have of being a competitive team is using Andrew Luck and him having MVP-like numbers. But also the Bengals have just came off a terrible year. Vontaze Burfict suspended again. They missed the playoffs. Marvin Lewis' future was in doubt. There's nothing exciting about this team right now, and the fans know it. They have to make up their own fantasies of why they should be excited. But most of them have come to realization they still got Andy Dalton, they still got Marvin Lewis, and they don't have any reason to be excited that this season will be any different. Now, there's some people, I don't know why, I've seen, I guess maybe for jokes, picking the Bengals to do well. But it's the same old, same old. We know what the Bengals are going to do, and that's be mediocre. Andy Dalton, he's just not what they thought he was, and it's showing every week. And he's not even a Matt Ryan. You saw what Matt Ryan's turned into. So Andy Dalton, basically this experiment should have been over. But Cincinnati, they sit with their twiddling their thumbs for too long. And, before you know it, Andy Dalton would be 8 years in the 10-year veteran with no playoff wins. So what are you going to say about them then? You can't defend them. The Colts are just so bad of a team. Andrew Luck is coming back. Haven't played for a year. That's their only hope. Other than that, the Bengals have a much stronger defense than the Colts, and they still have a better offense than the Colts. So I still got the Bengals winning this game. Ravens will be playing at Cincinnati, but nonetheless, that's a very big game, and we won't worry about predicting that, obviously, until next week. Let's stay in the AFC North, since we had the Bengals and Ravens predictions, let's move over to the AFC North matchup of Week 1, which is the Browns and Steelers. This game is going to be played in Cleveland, which really doesn't matter since Ben Roethlisberger is the most winningest quarterback in the city of Cleveland. So no other quarterback in the NFL has won more games in Cleveland than Ben Roethlisberger. None of the Browns quarterbacks. And that's where they play half their games every year. So that should tell you a little something about how the Steelers handle business against the Browns. Now, the only hope the Browns have is that the frazzled nature of our locker room gets into the best of our heads. And with such a different defense, Myles Garrett healthy for the first time facing Ben Roethlisberger. Yeah, this is the first time Myles Garrett actually played against us. And I can't even say the addition of Michael Kendricks because he's now arrested and probably going to be sitting in jail soon. And they just lost Carl Nassib. He's no longer a Brown. So given all of this and given the fact that Josh Gordon hasn't practiced, Tyrod Taylor's not going to beat you by himself, and Jarvis Landry is just Jarvis Landry by himself. You know, it's like the Miami Dolphins of last year. You're not afraid of Jarvis Landry. Again, you know the Steelers will beat the Browns. It might be a little close. I think Pittsburgh I actually think Pittsburgh can beat them by 14. Missing Bell is actually going to rally this team together, and they're going to feel more like a closely knit unit than ever before. No, there's nothing animosity, I don't think, held against it, but it's just a being proud of who you are and what you've worked for, that one of your own teammates is betting against you, hoping that betting that you're not going to do well without them to prove a point. That's the only assumption that I guess we can naturally draw. Other than, in addition, if he's injured, then it could be that possibility. But I think the natural thing is to feel slighted that your brother doesn't want to go to war with you. Le'Veon Bell no longer not a part of the Steelers this week, but the Steelers still cruise to a double-digit victory over the Browns. Looking next week, the Steelers will play at home against the Chiefs, who happen to play the Los Angeles Chargers in LA this week for our fourth game that we're going to cover. These Chargers look to be on the rise as they've drafted a lot of good draft picks over the last couple of drafts. One of those draft picks, Joey Bosa, will not be suiting up, but I think they will have enough to beat a Kansas City team who's really started to go into rebuilding mode for a little bit. That defense is not good. That used to be their best asset, was their defense, and now they've lost so many guys. And now at this point, without Marcus Peters, with the banged up Eric Berry who might not play, linebacking core has been depleted, and so is the defensive line. So this is not going to be a good year for Kansas City. I don't see it, especially considering that they are going to rely on their offense a lot, and their offense is led by a very young quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. They will finish last in this division, like I said before, and that will begin by losing to the Chargers in LA. LA probably gets a nice hot start. Phillip Rivers has a lot to prove, and he plays pretty well, I believe, when he has a chip on his shoulder. And this is one of those years where he doesn't have an excuse for not doing well this year. Melvin Ingram's came out of his shell. Joey Bosa will be back. They have great secondary. They have weapons. Yes, their tight end just went down, but guess what? They still got the old geezer Antonio Gates, who will be solid blocking for them. Really, this division is theirs for the taking. It starts today when they beat Kansas City, and Kansas City limps out of LA, and now they got to go on the road to Pittsburgh. 2 road games sucks, and now they're going to drop the 0-2. That's going to be a very, very difficult start for Kansas City in Patrick Mahomes' career. But I have the Chargers beating Kansas City. I don't know. I think this one could be closer, less than 7, but ultimately Phillip Rivers will lead them to victory. Opponent next week will be the Bills. Remember, we had the Bills losing to the Ravens to start off the season. So really, that's going to be a 1-0 team versus 0-1. That's going to be a huge game. The Bills are going to be at home, their home opener, and they'll be playing against the Chargers coming in 1-0. I think that'll be a pretty big game that's going to have playoff implications for the Chargers, because we know the Chargers are known for dropping those easy games, especially over on the road when they have to come to the East Coast. That's not going to be an easy game for the Chargers, and dropping one of those easy ones early on can really hurt their playoff chances. The Browns, who we predicted them lose to the Steelers, will play the Saints on the road, so it doesn't get any easier for the Browns either, as they'll likely go 0-2 to start the year. The Saints start off the season at home against the Buccaneers. So predicting this game, you got to like the Saints in it, really wherever it's played. But you're adding the fact that it's at home in that Mercedes-Benz Dome. Jameis Winston suspended. I can't give the Buccaneers much of a chance in this match. Their number one pick from a couple years ago or a year ago, O.J. Howard, hasn't fully secured his position. You got Ryan Fitzpatrick at quarterback, who he can keep the Band-Aid on. Don't get me wrong. He could surprise us, but I don't know what to expect out of this running game. Yes, you got Mike Evans, not unless you got a top elite quarterback thrown to you, and he doesn't have that. He has Ryan Fitzpatrick. So obviously that's going to limit how effective they can be offensively, and without a running game, I don't expect much of that from them. And then defensively, they should have a decent defense that might keep it a little entertaining. But the Saints they're going to win this by double digits. Let's not fool around, and they'll cruise to a victory. We already talked about who the Saints play next week when they get the Browns. The Buccaneers will play Philly next week, and that brings us full circle with the opponent. So with our next game is Tennessee at Miami, and this is not normally this is a sleeper. Let's just be honest. None of these two teams are attractive, but one thing that's going to be interesting to me is I think Tennessee could battle for second place in the AFC South. They typically play Jacksonville really well, so that gives them a leg up considering Jacksonville is the best team in that division. But, of course, you have the Houston Texans there. So they really need to get these wins against teams like the Miami Dolphins, who really don't have a shot of anything of making the playoffs. Miami this year is just here to cause ruckus. I mean, they don't have realistic expectations to make the playoffs. Let's just call it that. Like, if they make the playoffs, that's the Super Bowl for them. If the Titans make the playoffs, it's like, okay, we got to win a game. But if the Dolphins make the playoffs, it's okay, season's over. we had a good year. We made the playoffs. So what's going to be tough for Tennessee in this matchup is that you go down into Miami in September or even October, and it's now September. It's going to be 88 degrees. That's going to feel like 100 or something degrees. It's going to be hot, and it might even be hotter. That's the only thing I know is throughout the day in Miami from living there, it never stays one temp. No, they say it's a high 88, but it'll go up to 91, 92. It's going to feel like 105, 110. Tennessee's not going to be ready for that in their first matchup, and they're going to be tired. I do think Miami, they are dangerous enough as long as they have a smart quarterback, which Ryan Tannehill, he ain't much different. He's better than Jay Cutler. We saw what we had from Jay Cutler last year, and Jay Cutler is not as good as Ryan Tannehill, as sad as that is. But Ryan Tannehill will be able to make that team better than they were last year, and I think they get the W against the Titans team that's going to continue to underperform. And of course, that coach is on the hot seat, and so is Marcus Mariota. But I got Miami winning narrowly at the end of the ball game. After this Dolphins victory, the Dolphins will head up to New York to face the Jets for an interesting matchup, divisional matchup, and as well the Titans, as they will get to play Houston at home. So this is a pretty big game because for both of these teams, it sets up a win for going or heading into a week where you get a divisional foe, and you definitely want to have a nice momentum when you're going into a divisional week the following week. So big win for the Dolphins as they move over to play the Jets in New York, and the Titans will go home licking their wounds, trying to avoid an 0-2 setback to start the season as they play the Houston Texans. And speaking of the Houston Texans, this week they get probably the toughest team to play in the NFL, and that's the New England Patriots. You know, when you play New England at New England, you nearly have to play a perfect game. There's no way you can expect to make more than two mistakes and win that game. And when I say mistake, you know, obviously turnovers are huge, but even mistakes as untimely penalties. Now, I mean, you can have penalties, of course, but when you have penalties that destroy drives and penalties that extend drives, that's what really kills you against the Patriots. The Houston Texans, I want to be very excited about this team, and I am very excited about this team. I think they're a playoff team. I just don't think they're a good enough team with an experienced enough quarterback to go in the first week of the season and beat the New England Patriots. We saw Alex Smith do that last year, but Alex is a very preventative quarterback, and he's experienced. The guy has years under his belt, and he knows what he can't do. and he avoids falling into traps where he's doing something that he can't do. Deshaun Watson, I can't have that same amount of confidence that he's able to have that restraint. They did manage to lose the game last year. Watson had some errors, and he played fantastic, but he did have some errors, and they mismanaged the clock. A veteran quarterback would have been able to override the coach's mistakes and save his team, but he's not a veteran quarterback, and they will lose to the Patriots at New England. And I think that will be a good setup, because now you have a 0-1 Texans team going into Tennessee to place an 0-1 Tennessee team. And that team, whoever loses that game, might be out of the playoffs, or at least behind the 8 ball when it comes to catching up and getting that last wild card spot. They're not going to be in a good position to do that. Two good games that you're going to see this Sunday are going to be the Texans and Patriots, and Dolphins and Titans. All right, so another matchup this week, we have San Francisco playing at Minnesota. This is an easy game to pick. The only thing going for the 49ers is that they have some type of quarterback in Jimmy Garoppolo that they think they're going to be able to be competitive. And they got a 34-year-old corner in Richard Sherman. I don't know how old he is, but he's like 32, 33. Somewhere, he's not young. He's over 30. Richard Sherman is 30 years old. And besides Sherman and Garoppolo, I don't know anything else to be even remotely excited about this team. Going into Minnesota, one of the best teams in the NFL, this is going to be a great opportunity for Kirk Cousins to just showcase his talent with his new team and new talent around him. And this is going to be a double-digit game by halftime. I don't expect this to be competitive at all. So I got the Vikings over the Niners. So yeah, week two of the Vikings schedule has them slated against the Packers on the road. So this will be a nice momentum for them heading into that division. The Packers, they face off against the Bears at home, which I think since the game's at home, that's going to be enough to put them over the top. But I do think this game, the Bears are going to scare the Packers. Khalil Mack and Leonard Floyd, Eddie Goldman, who has turned in to be one of the better interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And then the addition of Roquan Smith and Danny Trevathan. These guys are serious ballers, and I expect them to really show out and have an argument. They're going to be hovering around top 5 this year. I think top 7, top 8 is definitely where I expect this defense to finish. So not enough to win at Green Bay. Green Bay, they're just going to be at home. Mitch Trubisky, I don't really trust him going into Lambeau his first time around and coming out with a W. So, yeah, I do have Green Bay winning. Don't count Chicago out. Chicago does have a fighter's chance in this match. And just, one mistake here, 2 mistakes there, and they can win this football game. So Green Bay and Minnesota will meet up in week 2. My prediction, both undefeated. Another interesting matchup that we don't usually see very often is going to be the New York Giants playing host to the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are coming off a dream season for them. I mean, making it to the AFC Championship game was an absolute dream for them. They haven't been to this particular game in over 10 years. So for them to get back to the AFC Championship game after almost probably 15 years since they've been there, I know they had they felt like they won the Super Bowl, to be honest with you. But going against the Giants in New York, I do think they pull out a W here, simply because the Giants with Eli, he's very prone to mistakes. And I think a lot of pressure is on Eli this year because of what happened at the end of last year with the benching. You remember he actually got benched, and then, of course, the coach got fired later, so now he's got his job back. But that was embarrassing. I mean, people are very sensitive to his performance now. So he's now going to have to go against one of the best ball-hawking secondaries and defenses that can get pressure on you. So, yes, he has Saquon Barkley, but I don't think that he's going to be fully accustomed to what Barkley brings to the table. They don't really know exactly how he's going to impact them. The game, and once they figure out how to really utilize them and which plays to cater to them, until then, they're not going to be as potent as they can be. And definitely going against Jacksonville, they're not going to learn a lot about themselves, because I see a lot of turnovers in this game, and I think Jacksonville is going to feast on this Giants offense and pull out a victory in Week 1. I got Jacksonville Jaguars over the New York Giants. It can, one-score game is probably unlikely. I do see this being a two-score game simply because of the errors that the Giants made. Because if the other team playing against Jacksonville is making errors, Jacksonville will not make errors. Jacksonville will make errors if you take care of the ball. But if you don't take care of the ball, which I do not think Eli Manning will do, they're going to come away with the victory in New York. Week 2, Jacksonville plays host to New England, which sets up a marquee matchup as both of these teams will also go into Week 2 with a win under their belts. And the Giants go at Dallas for a very pivotal divisional match. So as we look at Week 1 and we're happy football's here, Week 2 is already heating up with tons of scenarios. Next up is Washington playing on the road to Arizona. And this is probably one of the lesser anticipated matchups. I mean, obviously, everybody's anticipating their own team, but with the number of other good games around the NFL, not too many folks are going to be paying attention to this Washington and Cardinals game. But I don't see why you would. I mean, I do think Arizona has a chance of making the playoffs. Arizona could be a very sneaky good team. As they have playmakers in the receiving core. They got David Johnson healthy again, and now they have a quarterback who can manage an offense. And, he's not going to light it up and do anything crazy, but with that defense they have in Arizona, it can be very similar to what Minnesota had with the pass rushing ability and the coverage skills and the linebacker core. I'm not sure if the linebacker core matches up with what Minnesota has, but, it has potential there. So they did get a lot of turnovers in the preseason, as I noted in the other video. So that's something to look forward to. I think that can continue against a Washington Redskins team who has a lot of question marks on them. And going on the West Coast to start the season is never easy to do, to come away with the win. Arizona wins here. It could be close. It could be big. I don't know. I know Alex Smith, he's not going to light up the scoreboard. There's nothing on the Redskins defense that should scare Arizona. So I imagine that Arizona could blow them out if Washington makes a few turnovers. If Washington plays their best game, it will be a close game, and Arizona will probably still be able to sneak it out in the end. So that's the analysis of that game. Arizona will go forward into Week 2 playing LA Rams, so they're going to need this win heading into that Rams game, because you definitely don't want to start the season 0-2. And Washington, it doesn't matter about Washington, because we know Washington is not making the playoffs, so I won't even analyze them. Sorry, Washington fans. I mean, what is there to say? I mean, you guys have Alex Smith as your quarterback. The only thing you had to look forward to was Darius Geese. He's injured. He's out for the year. So now you have Adrian Peterson, who's, AP's good, but AP's not good enough to take you to the playoffs. And defensive-wise, why should we believe in anything the Redskins have over every other defense in the NFL that's budding, like the Chargers is a budding defense, the Texans? I guess we can go to the NFC, the Vikings. We know the Vikings are going to have a top defense. Philadelphia, Carolina, LA Rams. I didn't even talk about the Rams. So you're not going to have a top defense when you look at those guys. You'd be battling with Dallas for 3rd and 4th in the division. So second in your division would be a win. But that's on the table. We know you're not going to finish second in this division. So bad season starts off bad with a loss on the road, a tight loss to Arizona. So now we get to one of the premier matchups this week. Dallas playing at Carolina down the street at Bank of America Stadium. Of course, you see the new setup. I'm out here in Charlotte, no longer in Miami. But no, the Panthers this year, they got a decent team. I think they're going to be able to make a lot of noise in the NFC. NFC South is going to, that division is going to depend on how well you do against your divisional foes. And I don't see Dallas as being a huge threat. Carolina, all they have to focus on is stopping that running game against Dallas. If you can stop the running game and spend all your efforts there, which they have the defensive line and the linebacking core to do that, focus on Ezekiel Elliott and contain him. That's the biggest thing. Just don't allow him to get that 50-yard gainer, because that 50-yard gainer is what's going to flip the field. It's going to give them points on the board. It's going to be able to give them momentum, and you don't want to give them that. As long as you can make Dak Prescott nickel and dime down the field and take away Ezekiel Elliott, you'll be able to beat these Dallas Cowboys. And Cam Newton and his weapons on offense, of course, a second-year Christian McCaffrey, who showed a lot of promise last year. I mean, we got our situation with Le'Veon Bell. Almost much rather have a almost effective Christian McCaffrey who's a lot more humble than a Le'Veon Bell situation. So Christian McCaffrey, he's going to be a guy that I will watch out in the fantasy boards this year. He's going to get a lot of touches from receiving and running the football. And that's another thing, that the new age running back, every running back nowadays, you're going to expect to catch the football. So there's no reason why Bell needs to act like he's the only guy that can catch the football and run with it, because McCoy's been doing that. A lot of running backs can do that. But overall, yeah, Dallas start off the season 0-1, and Carolina 1-0. If there's any game that could be subject to upset, it would be this Dallas game at Carolina, because I don't know, it's just a certain vibe to it. Is that when the media gets so confident, especially listening to sports radio, ESPN 7:30 a.m. the sports here in Charlotte, all three panelists all predicted an easy lock it up win for the Carolina Panthers beating the Cowboys, and just something about that tells me that the Panthers might be overlooking the Cowboys a little bit, and Dallas might have something in store for them. So I'm not saying this is an absolute lock. I just still feel confident with the Carolina Panthers at home. They can beat the Dallas Cowboys, who don't seem to have a lot going for them other than Ezekiel Elliott on offense. And let's just be honest, they have a mediocre defense. 3 games left. We have a very interesting matchup, which is actually a Super Bowl repeat matchup when Seattle visits Denver. Now, the thing that's interesting about this matchup is because both of these teams are really bad. So, it's going to be almost like a toilet bowl. I guess I can't say, okay, I'll take that back. They're not both really bad, but I expect them to be really bad as far as fourth in their divisions. They both do have some talent on the team that can keep them in games. But, yeah, these are probably no better than 6-10 teams on this year, both of these teams. And just because of the push in that sense, I think I'm going to have to go with Denver beating Seattle, as that crowd will be fired up to play against Seattle at home. And Denver, I don't know about that defense. That defense really just has Von Miller at this point. Derek Wolfe is old, or whatever his name is, Wolf. And they have Nick Chubb, but Nick Chubb, I don't expect him to – I expect him in this game against this terrible Seattle offense to be able to have impact this game. So if we're just strictly looking at this game, he can impact the game and contain Russell Wilson. It's actually pretty interesting because Bradley Chubb – I said Nick Chubb earlier, but Bradley Chubb went to NC State, and Russell Wilson also went to NC State, and now they'll be playing against each other in Week 1. So I still got Denver beating Seattle, as Seattle's offense is just going to have to be drugged by Russell Wilson, and the defense is in shambles, and they're playing on the road. Mark this down as an easy. So I covered one of them. Actually, there's 2 Monday night games that we still left to cover. We're going to do these quickly because they're not too interesting games. It's the Jets and the Lions. If you were waiting on this part of the analysis, sorry to disappoint you, but I'm just going to go out and say the Lions are going to beat the Jets simply because it's in Detroit. If it was in New York, the Lions would struggle, as they usually do on the road, and lose that game. But the Lions at home, I like them against the new Jets team. We're not going to expect much from the Jets overall. Even though some of their fans have high expectations, we know what's in store for them. And that's 4th place in the AFC East again. And same thing for the Lions. I don't expect them. I actually expect them to be worse than the Bears and duke it out for last place. It might be a tie, and I think Chicago will win that tiebreaker easily over them. As far as the Rams and Raiders, the Raiders are a dumpster fire right now. They just traded away their best player, and they got nothing in return that can be put on the field right now. And not that it would have mattered, but it just makes it even more of a bad year that they're going to be facing, and that starts with a beat down by the hands of the Rams. Oakland Coliseum. Oakland Coliseum is such a dump. It's not even funny to like laugh at them. But yeah, the black hole. Yeah, it really is bad as a black hole, and they're going to get stomped out in front of their home fans and probably start booing them. So Rams over Raiders, and that wraps up your picks for the week. Again, this was a special weekend because we had a lot of activity. As a matter of fact, the last episode I recorded about Bell, I just got validated even more when we just saw David Johnson signed a new deal, a contract extension with the Arizona Cardinals. He got 3 years for $39 million, and 30 of those millions are fully guaranteed. $13 million per year, still $1 million less than the deal Bell got, and 2 years shorter of only 3 years compared to 5. So Bell was offered 5 years, $70 million, which was $14 million on average per year, $1 million more than David Johnson. And that's why I brought up that one point about Bell. He's been quoted several times saying, oh, the young guys are relying on me to set the baseline. They're relying on me to do this. Well, guess what? If you would have set the baseline by accepting that $14 million deal, now they would have had leverage to say, hey, you got to give me at least more than Bell, because Bell, he's 27 years old. I'm 23, 24, 25. You're going to get the best of my years now. And that's what we saw with the guarantee of $30 million of the 39, because David Johnson is also 26 years old. The next 3 years are going to be his best years. So similar, just like Bell. If Bell wanted a 3-year deal, which he doesn't want, he wants a 5-year deal because he wants security, is what he's been saying. He wants that long-term deal. So if he would have only taken a 3-year deal, you can get 3 years, 39, easy. Still, Pittsburgh will offer that deal tomorrow if we could, obviously, but we can't. The fact of the matter is that he's looking more towards $15 million per year, and it's just not going to be there. If he would have taken 14, David Johnson and Gurley, they would have had a really good chance of getting $15 million a year because, like I said, it's the last contract to sign. So now David Johnson got 13. Expect Ezekiel Elliott to go for 14 or 15, depending on Bell. Obviously, if Bell does finally accept his $14 million, now Elliott can go for 15. And then after Elliott goes for 15, Leonard Fournette can go for 16. That's pretty much how it goes. Not going to be that much high every time. It might be half a point up. But that's what his goal that he was saying that he was trying to do. But he's not. He talks it, but he doesn't walk it. Sorry, Bell, but you're just not going to get what you're looking for here. And that David Johnson deal shows it. Right, folks, that's all we have for today. Hopefully you're reading this Sunday morning right before the games, as we're going to have an exciting weekend of football. And I'll be here to recap it, hopefully get something up by Wednesday, as there wasn't any action in the Premier League. They had a international break. So right now it's all NFL. So I'll definitely have an episode, I think, up by Tuesday, Wednesday at the latest. Oh, and good luck to your teams. Comment on this video. Let me know what your favorite team is, and I'll make sure to cover that game more in depthly next episode. All right, guys. Peace.